On January 15th, 1919, at approximately 12:30 p.m., a large tank containing 2.5 million gallons of molasses burst in Boston, spilling its sticky cargo into the surrounding streets. Molasses flowed like a wave down the street, hitting people like a tidal wave and killing 21 people outright. Many more were injured, and some were even reported missing. It was the worst industrial disaster in the history of the United States up until that point, and is still considered to be one of the most extraordinary incidents in the city's history. But what caused this disaster? Let's find out in today's episode. In the late 19th century, several commercial wharves lined the waterfront of Boston's North End. One such wharf was owned by the United States Industrial Alcohol Company, which produced industrial alcohol for use in products like paints, varnishes, and plastics. In 1897, the company began purchasing molasses from nearby refineries and storing it in large storage tanks while it fermented. The molasses would then be distilled into alcohol, which would be sold to various manufacturers throughout New England. This arrangement worked well for both the alcohol company and the molasses refineries, as it allowed them to purchase and sell their products during different times of the year. This was because molasses could be stored in large quantities without spoiling for long periods of time. So the alcohol company would buy large amounts of molasses from the refineries during the latter half of the year, when they were producing it, and then sell their alcohol to manufacturers during the first half of the year when they were empty. This arrangement also provided jobs to many of the area's residents who otherwise might have been unemployed. So it was a win-win situation for everyone involved. However, there was a problem with this seemingly foolproof system. See, the thing about molasses is that it has a tendency to expand when exposed to freezing temperatures. And unfortunately, the large storage tanks that the alcohol company was using were not designed to withstand the expansion of the molasses. To make matters worse, the tanks were old and corroded, which made them even more susceptible to bursting. On the morning of January 15th, 1919, temperatures in Boston had dropped to around 8 degrees Fahrenheit, or about 13 degrees Celsius. Early that morning, the workers arrived at the plant and began pumping the molasses from the storage tanks into the distillery. They hadn't noticed that the temperature had dropped so low the night before, and since no one was on site, there was nothing to stop the molasses from expanding and overflowing from the tanks. At around 12:30 p.m., one of the storage tanks burst, sending 2.5 million gallons of molasses flooding into the streets. The molasses flowed like a wave down the street, hitting people like a tidal wave. The wave reportedly reached heights of up to 20 feet, or 6 meters, and was moving at speeds of up to 35 miles per hour, or about 56 kilometers per hour. People were killed outright when they were hit by the wave, and others were injured when they were tossed into the air and then crushed by tons of sticky molasses. Some people were even reported missing after the wave hit, presumably having been taken by the molasses and never seen again. As the wave of molasses surged through the streets, it knocked over buildings and streetcars. It even overturned a steamship that was docked nearby. The disaster continued for several hours as the remaining molasses in the storage tanks continued to flow into the streets. Eventually, the flow of molasses slowed and people began to emerge from the wreckage. When the dust settled, 21 people were found dead, many of whom were African American. Hundreds more were injured, and several were still missing. In the aftermath of the disaster, the state of Massachusetts created a commission to investigate what had happened. The commission determined that the disaster had been caused by the failure of the storage tanks and a lack of safety measures. The tanks had been old and corroded and had not been properly maintained. Additionally, there had been no attempt to warn the public about the potential danger posed by the storage tanks. The commission made several recommendations for how to prevent a similar disaster from happening again, including the construction of new and improved storage tanks and the creation of a warning system to alert the public in the event of another tank failure. And that's all for today's episode. Let us know your thoughts in the comments section below. And if you haven't already, be sure to like and subscribe for more historical tales. Thanks for watching.